How's everyone doing? Who smokes weed here? My people. All right. For everybody else, well, hopefully this will motivate you to get there with us. All right, so I have the pleasure about speaking with the future of cannabis, but it's hard to talk about the future when we don't necessarily have a common context on where this has come from and the language that's involved in this community. So I'm just going to give a little history about where we've been, give a little context to where we are, and then hopefully we can dream a little bit about where we're going. The roots of cannabis prohibition started around 100 years ago. We were basically, as a government, going after people that had opium in 1914. And from there, in 1930, we created the Narcotics Bureau, which was basically a prohibition against going for people with cannabis. Then we had our own version of fake news with Reefer Madness. The war on drugs was started by Reagan. And it wasn't until '96 in San Francisco where we legalized medical cannabis for the first time, which was huge. And shortly after that, a while actually, we legalized it for these other states. There's 9 total now. So this was a quote from Nixon's former domestic policy advisor, basically saying that the war on drugs was a way to go after hippies and people of color. Today, we still have cannabis as a Schedule I, as dangerous as heroin and LSD at a federal level. So the war on drugs is a war on people. If you look around the world, 22% of the US are the US prisoners. And above 50% of the drug arrests are related to small amounts of cannabis. We're not talking about drug kingpins with pounds and pounds of weed. We're talking about, a few grams in their pocket. And medical cannabis came around through this guy, Dennis Perrone. He started it basically around the HIV epidemic that was happening in San Francisco. His lover passed away, and he found solace in helping people treat HIV with medical cannabis. So that's what really started it off. And for the last 20 years, we've had medical cannabis. It wasn't until January 1st of this year where California has legalized for adult use. So anyone over 21 here? All right, you can buy weed legally. We had a medical breakthrough. The endocannabinoid system, everyone has one. Our body makes cannabinoids. Luckily, plants can make phytocannabinoids, which bind with our different receptors. And so we have THC, we have CBD. People know THC, right? It's the psychoactive component, cannabinoid that gets you high. But we also have CBD, and that's really been helping with people with epilepsy, with anxiety, a whole slew of things. But you can't just have one. It usually interacts with each other. It's called the entourage effect. And so the medical movement started taking storm. Sanjay Gupta came out. He was all about using medical cannabis for people with cancer, people with epilepsy, people with HIV. You could see it. And more conditions started seeing the benefits of cannabis. So we had a massive social change that happened when Colorado went legal. The first purchase was by Sean, and he bought it in Colorado in 2014, January 1st, 2 years after it was legalized. And this is from Bloomberg. It's actually quite interesting. If you look at the pace of US social change, once we start getting notched up above a threshold of 10, 20 states, 30 states, then it just takes off. Gay marriage was probably the last big spike you're seeing there. Before that, we had prohibition with alcohol, women's rights. So post-legalization, here's some of the stats that are happening. Opioid deaths are down. Does anyone know that opioid overdoses are the #1 killer in America? We had over 60,000 deaths last year. Drunk driving was about 13,000. Gun deaths were about 30,000. It's the #1 killer. And when you introduce cannabis into one of those communities or legalize it, 64% show a decrease in opioid use, 25% in overdoses go down. The stats are staggering. Violent crimes go down, arrests go down, teen usage goes down. The one argument's always about, what about the kids? Turns out, when it's legal, it's not as cool. Jobs go up, access goes up. So here comes to my favorite part, the product innovation. This is my favorite strain. It's called Red Congolese. It's a 12-week-long sativa. It's a 32%. It has a nose that's a little bit sour, but the taste is sweet. The smell comes from terpenes. Terpenes are in everything. Lavender, lemons. Has these qualities with cannabis as well. And you take this, a deeper look in here, and what's happening is on those flowers, you have these little trichomes. Those trichomes are what contains the THC, the CBD, all the effects that we're looking for. And you can extract them. You can extract them through hash. I don't know if you guys have ever had hash. Anybody? Yeah! All right. So this is some bubble hash made into a temple ball. So it's sieved through ice water bags, then it's dried, and then rolled up into a ball after it's pressed. You can keep that for decades and open it up and it'll still be good if it's done right, from old hashishans back in the day. When you take apply some science to this, I guess now you have way more ways to extract the trichomes. You have different concentrates that are being produced now. You have butters, you have rosins. Rosin, they just take the flower and squish it between two hot heated plates where the oil comes out. It smells amazing. Those oils are put into vaporizers, pens, the Pax Eras, the Bloom Farms, the Doses of the world. And you can actually start titrating your dosage based off of how much THC or CBD that you're looking for. Or you could use the Vape Exhale, which is one of my favorites. You can heat it up to a certain temperature, put a whole bunch of glassware through it, and go through multi-chambers of liquid cooling. You could take it as a tincture. People that have migraines have found exceptional benefit from using tinctures and dosing themselves that way. You have little itty-bitty 5-milligram marshmallows that you can infuse this with. So all these things are now being taken and put into everyday items that makes it easy for someone to medicate. So with regulated cannabis comes extreme amount of tracking. Everything from seed to sale. So in most regulated states, you see a barcode number being affixed to the bottom of the plant. That barcode number then travels with the harvest to the distributor, to the testing labs, and then ultimately to the dispensary who then sells it to you. And with all that owner's tracking actually comes way more accountability on what you're smoking, or who grew it, where it came from, and you're gonna need systems like Meadow, shameless plug, to monitor and all that and make it compliant. So this is a current look of the US cannabis landscape. We have 29 states that are legal, 9 that have recreational, with a whole bunch more considering of going legal this year, or at least going the ballot. When we look globally, this is a $57 billion market in 2027. Most of that growth will come from North America and Canada. Canada is legalizing July 1st. It's going to be the biggest thing for that country since Trudeau. And you see the pace going up, and then where it crosses over on the medical and adult use side. So you find that most countries, most states, medical is that foot in the door, and then it opens it up to full-blown legalization. But for us, it really starts locally for the future. So we have the benefit of being near some of the best farms in the country. People that have been growing it for decades, generational farmers, where the prohibition has forced people to take care of a small plot of land with a limited number of plants and really nurture them to their fullest potential. We're talking about genetics of plants that have been cross-pollinated to produce different strains of cannabis that are either heavy in THC or heavy in CBD or a ratio of each. We're talking about genetics that have the aromas of a bowl of oranges that comes right to the nose, that goes right down to the throat. All of that is within a few hour drive from here. And when you think about local cannabis, it's really about supporting the local communities that are going there. You're not supporting a big corporation. You're not supporting a monolithic Monsanto company. You're supporting small farmers. And so when I think about the future of cannabis, I really think about local. We're already seeing that in organic foods. Why not just skip all this mass scale rigmarole and go straight to what's happening now, which is local, sustainable, craft cannabis. And when you go that route, you'll find that the quality is going to be, way better. And so the future is now. The future is about thinking of how you are making purchasing decisions, not just getting, an ounce of cannabis or an eighth of cannabis and not knowing what it is. You should be asking yourself questions like, what's it smell like? Where is it from? Who is it grown by? What are the genetic compositions of it? What are the terpene levels? What are the strains that it came from? Some of my favorite strains that you hear about, like Girl Scout cookies, are basically a product of two other plants that crossbred in order to produce that. We're moving into an area where cannabis is coming out. So you guys are saying, hey, I smoke. Come out, support yourselves, show who you are. The stigma will allow this plant to flourish, and our root system will be able to go way beyond than just what it's been regulated to for the last 100 years. We have the opportunity of having cannabis go everywhere. And with that, I think you're going to see, way better happiness, a better world, and hopefully have a lot of laughs along the way. Thank you very much. I'll take any questions or anything, but got some time. All right. Yeah, so the question is, are you able to find the cannabis at a farmer's market? And what's interesting about regulation is that events are regulated as well. And so these big events that we are used to in California have to go through a whole new process in order to get permission. There's a current bill in the legislation which will allow for local events or through local approval. And with that, the hope is to allow vendors, manufacturers, growers, cultivators to sell directly to the patient. Because right now in the regulated world, a dispensary is the only one that can hold a license to sell it to. My favorite event of the year is called the Emerald Cup. It happens in Santa Rosa. It's in December. It's basically post-harvest season. So you get to meet all the farmers. They have everything that just has been harvested, and you can get some great deals there. Until then, there may be another farmers market coming up in May, I believe, produced by them. Yeah.
What is Meadow?
Oh, the question is, what is Meadow? So Meadow is my company that I started with 3 other co-founders. We went through Y Combinator in 2015. We're all cannabis patients. We build software for the industry. So point of sale systems, compliance. You could also go to getmeadow.com and order a delivery that's sent to you within an hour or less. So we build software for the industry, but we're fanatics about quality and just getting the best. Any other questions? Cool. Thank you very much, guys.